Hey guys, what's up? So, like I've been doing for the last few days with the current situation, I've been doing a lock-in anime quiz, and this one's covering day 9. Today we'll be focusing again on card captors, more details about the actual story this time, and the appearance of the cards. Let me know in the comments what you think about these series, whether you want anything else included, because I'll always have a bit of a look. It all depends on how much you kind of interact with it. So the first question is, which card took control of Chelsea and how did it control her? This was seen actually quite early on as one of the cards, and it is a very simplistic card in what it does. It's not particularly powerful, but has been used by Sakura in a few different ways. But it's a very standardized card. There have been other cards which have done similar things in how they've tried to possess other people, but this tends to be one of the more unique ways it has managed to do this. It's kind of in the classification of an offensive card, and it's very direct in how it works. It's not like some of the cards which require you to kind of sense them first. It just, when it activates, then you pretty much know how to deal with it. And the answer is the sword card. What had happened is they had wanted to study for a spelling test, which was in their class. They Chelsea was having a lot of difficulty with the spelling, and therefore they wanted to kind of help her with this. They kind of organised between themselves a study session. She decided, Sakura and the rest of them decided to buy a brooch for good luck. The brooch that Chelsea bought was a sword-looking one, just from a store. When she was asked to put it on, maybe to see if it will provide her with luck, she became unresponsive. Her eyes went into a daze. They tried to get her out of it, but then the sword card activated. You see in the image that what she's holding is actually the sword card, and it took control of her. And she started attacking recklessly. The issue Sakura had was having difficulty trying to capture it without causing any harm to Chelsea. Initially, she used the jump card to try and avoid its attacks, but she had to find a way to get rid of the sword card without harming Chelsea. She ended up using the illusion card, which actually turned itself into an image of Mr. Tarata, who was the teacher who had told Chelsea that she needs to improve. The illusion card can sometimes create what you fear the most. This was enough to kind of distract Chelsea to the point where Sakura was able to knock the sword card out of her hand and capture it. Question 2 is, which two cards were found in Sakura's house at the same time, and why were they problematic? This was also seen quite early on, and actually Sakura caused herself the problem because she was doing some house cleaning that was part of her chores for the day. It was her turn to do like a lot of the chores for the house. It was a weekend. She found the two cards scattered, but made the mistake of not signing them. By not signing her name to them immediately, she allowed them to reactivate and therefore enable the problem to occur. And the answer is the wood and rain cards. Basically, what was happening was the wood was being fed by the rain, almost uprooted the family house. This happened because Sakura found, I think she found the rain card, but it was blotted in a lot of ink. Therefore, she couldn't read the card. She knew the other card was around as well. When she kind of left rain on the side, it activated its power and got rid of the ink. It then progressively enabled the wood to get more powerful because it was adding water to it. Wood needed sunlight, and therefore kind of it grew itself out within the house to the point where it went into and above the attic in order to kind of get fresh air and light. What also happened was Kiribera said that the wood card itself is a very gentle spirit, and it's not usual for it to do this. When they got to finding the rain card, Sakura had already got the water elemental, which is the strongest version of water. It was able to instantly seal the rain card, which is quite a mischievous card. She was able to catch it, and then she turned to the wood card and said, "It's your turn." Kira says for her to wait, because the wood spirit actually just turns back into its spirit form easily, and is quite known for being quite a peaceful card. It was only the fact of the rain acting up that is why it became out of control. So question 3 is, which capture can Lee be seen observing from the outside? This again was quite early on within the series, and Sakura had captured just a few cards before she found Lee. It's not one of the cards that is used that much. I don't actually remember how it was used when it was forced into a star card. I think it might have been through that time where she was sealing multiple cards at the same time. That happened twice. It happened once with when she was trying to also seal the dash card, which went on the escape. She also sealed a number of cards in the final challenge, where she had to face Eli and the spirits that were helping him. And the answer is the silent card. This was a difficult capture for Sakura, not from the point that this was a powerful card. It was actually a weak card that was found within a art museum. It had actually taken up space from another person's painting who had actually died, and the daughter had tried to get rid of the spirit. Part of its powers were to kind of remove the noise intruder from the area, so she would always turn that person to transform them outside of that area. It was quite a difficult capture for Sakura from the point of view that every time she tried to use the mystical chant, she wasn't able to capture it. The only way she was able to do so was by using the shadow card outside, stretching her shadow, to the point where she was able to kind of capture it using her own shadow. So question 4 is, which card caused the small girl to end up in the sky? This card in particular is one of those trickster cards. It's not a powerful card. It was expressed that it could barely move anything, and its purpose was more just to annoy people than for anything that could be considered useful. And the answer is the float card. This was in an episode where both Sakura and Kiribera had gotten into an argument, as a result, Kiro had kind of wandered off. He had ended up in kind of like a tip area and was actually taken by a by this little girl who found it. She then treated it like a cat. He accidentally spoke to her, and so she kind of discovered that he could talk. After this, things started moving, and Hero could sense a cloud card. Next thing you know, the little girl was on top of being made to float up on top of the card, and Kiro tried to rescue her, but wasn't powerful enough to do anything about it. The float card wasn't able to kind of keep her up in the air for that long, and so she was actually made to kind of fall from a large height from a bunch of flats. Sakura was able to use the combination of the fly card and the wood card in order to both capture this and to save the girl by trapping her within the woods rather than kind of hitting the ground. Again, it's a very weak card. It was seen to only be able to lift very minimal things, and just was a natural trickster. So question 5 is, which card was the first to be turned into a star card? All of the cards were eventually turned into star cards. Some of them you saw, some of them you didn't. Again, there were two situations where mass numbers of cards were sealed at the same time. I believe that was more of a creative choice by the writers, because to create storylines for each of the cards might have been too much to find a specific purpose for a number of them. And therefore, this is kind of how they chose to do this. The first card to be transformed is a very powerful card, and is one that was actually, ironically, in the first series where she was just capturing the cloud cards, one of the end cards she caught. It's very powerful for what it does, and it was necessary for the environment that she was put into. And the answer was the fiery card. What happened is that there was an area where there was a large amount of rainfall. This trapped Kiro, Madison, Yugioh, and Sakura in these large water-based pools, almost similar to kind of like a tornado. They were all having difficulty breathing, and then this is also the time where Sakura had to create her own chant. She used the power of the fiery card because it was the most powerful card she had to kind of counter water, and to kind of heat the water enough to just break it apart. Again, this card was found in episode 37, I think, of the original, so it was one of the last cards to be released. However, it being the first to be transformed means it was able to be relied upon a bit more heavily than some of the other cards, which were also very heavily reliant on Sakura's magic. Question 6 is, what form did the jump card take in episode 5? We saw this card very recently within the series. It's not particularly powerful, however, it is one of those cards that's incredibly useful. It was used in a number of episodes to avoid taking attacks from various cards, especially some of the more physical attackers. What it does is it produces wings across Sakura's feet on her shoes, which enable her to kind of jump large spaces over time. Again, like anything, it's limited to how its power can be used. but it being having this effect has been useful in a number of situations. It can be compared to cards such as the fly card, which have more universal abilities than for direct attacks, which is for things like the water card and fiery card. And the answer is it came in the form of a stuffed toy rabbit. This is its normal form anyway. What happened was it had been bought up in Twin Bells, a new toy store in within the city. All the kids wanted to kind of look around and actually brought up a couple of things. I think Chelsea took it home with her. It was either Chelsea or Nikki who took it home. It was then seen to have escaped. They had initially believed it had been stolen by a robber, but then again, why would anyone do that? It actually then returned to the store. The store owner had started crying actually when she was accused of anything, because she said that this has happened in a number of occasions, not realizing that this was actually a cloud card. They had to kind of distract the owner whilst Sakura was trying to catch it and tried to find it within the store. She ended up picking it up without realizing what it was. Hiro said, "That's it. That's that's the jump card." It smiles and kind of jumps away. What it does is it ends up absorbing all the other stuffed toys and becomes a giant version of itself. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a clown. It's a bit of a trickster and considers itself to be quite an annoying card. Whilst it's useful, it didn't really have any control over its size, and was able to avoid capture from the wood card initially. It gaining or the size because of the other stuffed toys didn't help it either. It wasn't able to control the weight of itself and actually fell over because it couldn't control the balance. This then kind of got rid of all the stuffed toys from it because it just kind of released them. It was left lying on the floor confused, and Sakura immediately just captured it like that whilst it was still in a daze. Question 7 is, which card was used to defeat the power card? This is a little bit of an indirect question because the card wasn't a direct counter, but it was able to work against the power card in such a way that it kind of gave up on its own. And the answer is the time card. Initially, Sakura had been trying to chase the power card away from anyone else, so people couldn't see the catcher. Not only that, but she was concerned that it was running amok within a zoo, which they had been invited to on a school trip. And the only way Hiro said that you have to name a contest because that's how power likes to show itself off, by facing other people. It reveals itself when Sakura says tug of war, and it shows itself to be a small female spirit, very cute looking, and it kind of looks towards I think it was like one of these rail brackets with rope in it. She takes it and challenges Sakura that way. When Sakura tries to take the rope, Power is able to easily outpower Sakura. Elephants that had actually been saved by Sakura actually ended up helping. It was a mother and a baby elephant, but even this was not enough, as Power was too strong for them. Lee got involved from the side, considering that it was just not going to happen. He saw that they weren't going to win, so used the time card to freeze. As he says, freeze the moment. Froze the scene, and he was able to remove the rope from the power card's hand. In doing this, he then goes back to where he was and releases the time so that it goes back to the present. And the power card gives up when it sees that it's lost. Sakura is then able to catch it. Again, the time card being as powerful as it is, it can only be used for short amounts of time to freeze it, and it has a heavy drain on the user. Question 8 is, how was the freeze card identified and captured? This was near the end of the first series. It was one of the more powerful cards that Sakura had to face, and it had a very unique way in how it attacked its opponents. Although the first instance they actually saw it was just actually in front of them. It appeared as a line of glass. And the answer is, it was seen under the ice circling like a shark. The image of it looks very much like what you would see of a whale or something like that. It was constantly kind of circling in against both Lee and Sakura. They were able to kind of predict the patterns and the attack form it was taking, and were able to kind of cut it off and capture it that way. It was very close, considering that most of their friends who were also on the school trip froze as a result of its abilities. Question 9 is, which card attempted to ruin Sakura's reputation and injured Tori? At the time that they were trying to deal with this card, they didn't know what was going on, and Sakura wasn't able to identify what this was, and she had to use quite a special technique to find it. And the answer is the mirror card. What happened was Sakura had been seen to be causing damage throughout the town. Meilin had seen her destroy various toy stands and tap in certain areas. She saw, I think it was Nikki and Chelsea saw her take a kid's ice cream and kind of stamp out one of their sandcastles. They tried going after her, and Sakura was questioned on why she was acting that way. She didn't know the answer, and was ended up having to speak to Kira about why this has happened and what was going on. Kira identified that this is probably a cloud card and used this kind of... the cloud cards can be used to predict things and to kind of sense things. He identified 3 different cards. The first card they turn over is the Windy card. This card creates channels of communication within the other cards and informs them that Sakura is a card captor. The next 3 cards that were revealed were the Shadow card, the Water card, and the Illusion card. And the final card shown to be revealed was the Flower card. This was able to trigger Sakura's memory in order to use to identify who the mirror card's target was, which was Tori. The 3 cards used in the middle, which were the Shadow, Water, and Illusion cards, were clues as to the name and identity of the card. This was necessary because it was one of those cards that couldn't be immediately captured or outpowered. She tried using she used Windy and Water cards against it. It wouldn't take any of these attacks. She had to identify its name before it would be be released in order for her to capture it. And the final question is, which card captured was used to bring down a card later on in that episode? It wasn't an environment in the same day, which is quite unusual. This is the only case that I remember of this happening, and the specific card ended up being a direct counter for the other card. And the answer was the big card. Initially, Sakura had been out with her friends. There was a situation where various animals and objects became very large. For example, there was a large cat. They found her sitting on a fountain edge, and Kira warned, "Look, you need to be careful because even her just sitting there is enough for something to happen," which did occur. She changed a goldfish into a very large goldfish. It was quite easy for her to catch it because it's not an aggressive spirit, but it was used by her to counter the create card. Its power, it was found in the shape of a book, and it depended on the person's imagination. If someone had a very strong imagination, they would feed off that power, and whenever the writer would write anything in the book, the create card would use its power to bring that to life. In that situation, it was taken up by Nikki, who would create things at probably quite into the night. This power would then activate during the night, whereas Sakura was finding things like dragons, flying hippos, panthers with like confused looking eyes that were able to fly. The Kira identified that this was a very unusual person and that they had a high level of imagination, which they were concerned about. Sakura had to use the big card to try and take down a fire-breathing dragon. She was able to do that, and Kira said, "Look, you need to capture the card now, because if it stops creating, what you'll do is it will continue to do so every night until you catch it, and that because the creature, the dragon, was made from the create card, it would trace the card back to where it was, and therefore you could capture it by capturing the dragon. This is what Sakura did. It was a very tricky capture from that standpoint. She had to be very careful of where she was, and she had to avoid letting the dragon head into town. What did you think of the quiz? Was there any information that you found interesting? Was there anything you didn't really know about the series? Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.